Hi there, I'm Tara, and I've come to share a story that's still fresh in my mind from a few months back. I want to shed light on toxic behavior and the importance of standing up against it. At 32 years old, I live with my husband Stephen, who's also 32, and our kitten. Stephen and I have been together since high school, and despite attending colleges in different states, our bond remains strong. We're about to celebrate our 15th anniversary as a couple, but unfortunately, my mother-in-law Lily won't be joining us. Lily has never approved of me. She's always favored her two sons, Stephen and his older brother Sean, showering them with attention since birth. They adored her so much that they failed to recognize her controlling and manipulative nature as they grew older. Lily's stringent rules became suffocating for her teenage sons. They weren't allowed to date, socialize, or even have sleepovers. Sean rebelled against her restrictions, often getting into trouble. Despite his defiance, he stood up for his now-wife Jessie when Lily attempted to intimidate her. As Stephen and Sean distanced themselves from Lily upon turning 18, her focus shifted to me. She went to great lengths to sabotage our relationship, even planning a trip to Hawaii during prom week to keep us apart. Although Stephen pleaded with her to cancel the trip, he rarely challenged her authority. During our college acceptances, Stephen and I briefly separated, during which Lily celebrated and encouraged Stephen to move on. Despite her efforts, Stephen eventually reunited with me, much to Lily's dismay. She resorted to harassing and humiliating me at every opportunity. Lily's behavior serves as a reminder of the importance of recognizing and combating toxicity in relationships. It's crucial to stand up against such behavior to protect oneself and those we care about. I attempted to have a conversation with Stephen about Lily's behavior, but it didn't go as planned. Stephen, your mother's treatment of me is very disrespectful. I've always tried to be friendly and welcoming towards her, but all she does is berate me and call me names. I'm getting tired of her behavior. You need to do something about it, I expressed. Tara, you know my mother's a little sensitive with what happened with Sean. She's afraid to lose me as well. She only means well for me and my future. You shouldn't take her words to heart, Stephen replied. So you're okay with how Lily treats me? Seriously, Steve, you remember she tried to break us up, right? I questioned. She only did that because she thought you would cheat. If you had cheated on me, I would have been heartbroken. She wanted to help me escape a bad heartbreak, Stephen justified. Are you serious? She played on your insecurities to end our relationship. How can you justify that? I retorted. No matter what I said, Stephen never agreed with my perspective. He always thought I was overreacting and that Lily was only looking out for him. He outright refused to believe me when I said that Lily called me to berate me. He always said that Lily could do no such thing and that I was falsely accusing her of being mean. Even Sean tried to talk some sense into him, but after knowing everything, Stephen fought with Sean and accused him of betraying their mom. Things became strained between Sean and Stephen. Sean ended up marrying Jessica, his high school girlfriend whom Lily had tried to scare off. He invited Sean and me to the wedding but refused to even tell Lily about it. Lily was in hysterics and tried to convince Stephen to talk to Sean and get herself invited. Stephen, being the mama's boy he is, argued with Sean about Lily. Stephen almost didn't go to the wedding to support Lily. However, I asked him, do you really want to boycott the wedding to support Lily? Considering what she did to Sean and Jessie in high school, she still complains about Jessie and insists that she took Sean away from her. Why should they invite her to their wedding? Music. He responded, look, you didn't know the whole story. It was a big misunderstanding. She was trying to do what she thought was best for Sean. Moms can get carried away sometimes, but she's ready to mend bridges. We're family, and we shouldn't hold grudges against each other. I countered, it's their wedding, and they can choose who to invite. It's not your place to make those requests. We need to respect their decision. I know I can't do much, which is why I'm not attending the wedding. I want them to know that they are making a mistake. I'm going to RSVP tomorrow, and they will have plenty of time to change their minds. I warned him, Stephen, if you don't go to their wedding, they might cut you out as well. They've already done that to Lily. Are you sure you want to lose your brother over this issue? After a lot of back and forth, he finally agreed to attend the wedding. I was happy, thinking things might start to change. He witnessed how happy Cian and Jesse were without Lily's interference. They moved far away and organized the wedding to prevent Lily from showing up. Lily went ballistic when Stephen showed her the pictures, crying on his shoulders and making him stay with her for a month. Stephen even canceled our Colorado trip to make it up to her. I was heartbroken by how he handled the situation. However, I knew that we loved each other deeply, and breaking up wasn't an option anymore. All I hoped for was that Stephen would see the light and come to his senses about Lily's horrific behavior. Fast forward to 2 years ago, Stephen finally proposed to me, and I said yes. Lily was upset but put on a happy face for him. Later, I discovered that Lily refused to give Stephen her engagement ring because she was convinced I was a gold digger and that our marriage wouldn't last. I must admit, I adore the ring Stephen picked out for me. As engineers, we both earn well, and he was more than capable of buying the ring himself. Plus, I'd much rather wear something he chose than any of Lily's jewelry. Wedding planning turned into a disaster. Lily inserted herself everywhere she could, from cake tasting to venue searching. She detested my ideas and even attempted to change the theme. She called my vintage theme boring and tacky, and though I tried to ignore her, my then fiancé Stephen took her criticisms to heart. Stephen and I meticulously considered every decision we made. I finally had to put my foot down and talk to him about it. This is getting ridiculous. We're the ones getting married. Your mom needs to give us space to decide on our own. I don't need her input on everything. She dislikes everything I choose. You need to tell her to back off. I insisted. Tara, Mom just wants the best for us. She's been to more weddings than us, and I'm sure her input will be valuable to us in the future. You know she couldn't attend Cian's wedding. She just wants to enjoy mine, Stephen reasoned. I'm tired of hearing that excuse. She deserved to be uninvited from Cian's wedding. That was all her fault just because Jesse didn't allow her to interfere. I will not include her in everything. She's welcome to come along, but saying mean things about my choices is unacceptable. This is our wedding, Stephen. She already had hers, I argued. After much coaxing and begging, Stephen finally decided to tell Lily to back off. She threw a fit but toned it down a little. Sadly, Stephen prioritized her choices and changed many things. Initially, I felt pretty sad, but I also knew it was Stephen's day, so I went along in a few places to avoid more trouble. I hadn't yet developed a strong backbone, and Stephen was too engulfed in the fog to think clearly. The wedding turned into another disaster when Lily showed up in a white dress that was so sparkly and lacy, everyone could see it was a bridal gown. Thankfully, Stephen realized the problem with her dress and insisted she change before the ceremony. She tried to play dumb and claimed she didn't have another dress. At that point, my maid of honor and best friend produced a pale blue gown that fit Lily perfectly. Knowing she was planning to wear white, I went shopping and bought her a decent dress out of my own pocket. Lily was out of excuses and had to wear the dress. During the reception, she made tearful speeches about losing her babies to awful women, targeting both me and Jess because they were avoiding her. Lily also disparaged our relationship and tried to portray herself as the poor mother-in-law. The wedding guests looked awkward, and even her family was mortified. My maid of honor promptly took the microphone away and started to lighten the mood. During our honeymoon, Lily called us continuously, crying about feeling lonely. At one point, she was calling us 6 times a day. When she couldn't reach Stephen, she called me, accusing me of keeping him away from her. She insisted that no matter what I did, Stephen would always choose her over me. I reminded her that we were on our honeymoon and that she needed to stop calling us so frequently. When Stephen's phone died, he went back to our room to charge it. There was no reason for me to keep him away from her. I know how greedy you are, Tara. All you want is his money. You cannot accept it. He sends me money every month and brings me gifts. You want to isolate him so that you can take all this money. I won't let that happen. He has been taking care of me since his father died 10 years ago, Lily accused. Lily, I don't care if he looks after you. You are his mother, so it's natural he will send you money. I earn pretty well for both of us, so I don't want his money anyways. You need to stop accusing me of such things, I responded firmly. Shut up, girl. You can fool him, but I know what type of woman you are. Now hand over the phone to my baby immediately. I need to talk to him right now, Lily demanded. This was just one of the many conversations I had with her throughout the honeymoon. We returned home and had to deal with her crying for days because we didn't take her on our honeymoon. Imagine my surprise when she scolded my husband for going without her. Anyway, as usual, Stephen did everything to console his mother and ignore my problems. I was slowly learning to put up with her tantrums and speak out for myself. Everything was going more or less okay until a few months ago when I found out that I was pregnant with our first child. We were both ecstatic, and Steve wanted to tell Lily immediately. I was a little uneasy about it, but decided to let it go. I was sure she would be happy for her first grandbaby. Boy, was I wrong. The moment she knew, the waterworks and screaming started. She said I was baby trapping him and taking him away from her. It was all part of my grand scheme. She's sure I cheated on Stephen and was passing off the baby as his. My husband did his best to calm her down, but she refused to listen to him. By this point, I grew increasingly weary of Lily's antics. Her tantrums persisted for 2 weeks before she decided to pay us a visit. She arrived early in the morning and let herself in with a spare key. Lily seemed overly joyous about our baby and even attempted to shower me with gifts. Stephen was elated, believing Lily had finally accepted the baby. However, the reality was far from that. I felt uneasy about her newfound happiness and opted to remain cautious. Later that evening, Lily offered to make us some tea, claiming it would help warm me up since it was getting chilly outside. Stephen was sincerely grateful for her kindness, giving me an "I told you so" look. Deciding to investigate, I excused myself and went to check on Lily in the kitchen. I observed her making tea and adding something from a carton. Both my husband and I are lactose intolerant, so we only use a specific brand of oat milk for our tea. The carton Lily used was not the one we normally use. While she used the oat milk for 1 cup, she poured from the suspicious carton into the other. Initially, I brushed it off, assuming she was simply using another type of vegan milk for variety. However, I remained uneasy when she placed the suspicious mug in front of me. In an impulsive move, I discreetly switched my husband's cup with mine when they weren't looking. We drank our tea, and the entire time, Lily smirked at me from across the couch. Thankfully, nothing happened for the rest of the night. However, in the early hours of dawn, I heard my husband throwing up in the bathroom. He made several trips, and the noise woke me up. After a while, I saw him lying on the couch in the living room, clearly in pain. When I approached him, Lily emerged from her room, looking concerned. Upon seeing Stephen's distress, she began to ugly cry. It was then that I realized she had used cow milk in our tea. I was seething with anger, but first, I had to get Stephen to the hospital. I called 911 and requested an ambulance because Stephen was experiencing intense stomach pain and was on the verge of passing out. At the hospital, we waited for the medication to take effect. When the doctor arrived for a consultation, I took Lily with me and made her confess in front of Stephen and the doctor. She was worried about her son, so making her confess wasn't difficult. The doctor shook his head and informed us that Stephen needed to be hospitalized for a day. After the doctors left, Stephen looked troubled. Suddenly, the fog started to clear in his head, and he was baffled by what Lily had done. He asked her, "Mom, you know I'm allergic to milk. Why did you use it? We don't even keep cow milk in our fridge. Why did you bring it to our house? Even Tara doesn't drink cow milk, and you are well aware of that." Lily responded tearfully, "Stephen, trust me. I didn't want to hurt you. I don't know how this happened. Of course, I know my baby can't have milk. I am your mother." Stephen pressed further. "Then why did you add milk to my tea, Mom? What happened?" Lily continued sobbing in a corner, prompting me to reveal the truth. "I know why Lily brought cow milk into our home. You weren't supposed to drink it. It was meant for me." Stephen was shocked. "You can't drink cow milk either. I'm sure Mom knows that as well. Why would she bring cow milk for you?" I don't understand. I explained, Lily just wanted to hurt me and our baby. I don't know what she wanted to achieve, but she wanted me to suffer. She gave me the cup you drank from. I switched our cups when she wasn't looking because I didn't want to risk the health of our child. Turns out I was right. Stephen was devastated and apologized profusely to me. He vowed to keep Lily away from our lives. I comforted him as best as I could and took him home the next day. I also changed the locks on our house while Stephen was in the hospital. He called Lily and informed her that we were going no contact with her for good, despite her protests and pleas. Stephen firmly stated, Mom, after what you've done, there's no way I want you around. I always stood up for you and defended you. I was too blind to see how much you were hurting my family. I won't allow this anymore. You have crossed the line. Stephen, please, I didn't mean for this to happen. She was taking all your time, and I was feeling lonely. I thought that the baby would make things worse. I simply wanted to hurt her a little and make her suffer. I'm sorry, Lily pleaded. There is no point in saying sorry now. You have done something unforgivable. I cannot even imagine what would have happened if Tara had drunk the tea you gave her. I am disgusted with you and don't want to hear your voice again. Leave us alone, Stephen asserted firmly. With that, we slowly started going no contact with her. She showed up at the house and tried to get in with her keys. When she saw that we changed the lock, she started banging on the door. We simply called the cops and let them deal with her. We also blocked her on all our phones and social media. Sean and Jesse contacted our extended family to inform them about the issue. Everyone was downright disgusted and appalled by her behavior. After discussing her actions with me, Stephen, Sean, and Jesse, we decided to put a restraining order on her. With all the evidence caught on our security camera and her confession to the doctor, the order was granted pretty soon. So far, she has stayed away but has tried to fish for information from our extended family. No one has agreed to entertain her demands. We have also cut off our financial support, so she had to take up a job at Walmart to get by. We are slowly rebuilding our relationship with Sean and Jesse. Stephen and Sean had a heart-to-heart conversation and solved their problems. Jess and I were always good friends, so this just made us even happier. Thankfully, my husband has finally come to his senses and protected me from Lily. We are now pretty happy and eagerly waiting for the birth of our child. To be on the safe side, I reminded my husband that I won't allow Lily to ever have a relationship with our child. To my surprise, he agreed to this condition immediately. We've been enjoying the peace in our household after Lily is gone for good. We might just move to Scene City after our child is born. I am not sure what the future will bring, but I am positive we will get through everything together.
Cynthia, are you okay? Tears welled up in my husband's eyes as he spoke to me. I had suddenly developed severe stomach pain right after eating the beef stew made by Olivia and was rushed to the hospital. In the hospital room, my husband showed me a video. What is this? Upon seeing the video and understanding the situation, I immediately felt an overwhelming nausea and covered my mouth with both hands. This is absolutely unforgivable. The video clearly showed Olivia moving in and out of the toilet while cooking. I am Cynthia, a 25-year-old office worker. My husband Kevin, who is 3 years older than me, and I are about to celebrate our third wedding anniversary. Kevin and I married following his earnest approach, but even after 3 years of marriage, we have not been able to find much time just for the two of us. I got promoted right after getting married and have been extremely busy ever since. Still, Kevin always says gently, I am happy just being married to you, so don't worry about it. I'm sorry, Kevin, and thank you. Kevin and I live in a family-oriented condominium. Both of us strongly desire to have children, so we chose this place with the future in mind. Here with Kevin, I'll build a warm family and welcome the children we'll have someday. But my busy schedule never eased, and we couldn't have a child for 3 years. Then one day, as we were eating dinner as usual, Kevin spoke to me with a serious expression. Hey, I got promoted. I think my salary will increase significantly, so if it's okay with you, Cynthia, how about you quit your job and become a housewife? Let's seriously think about having children. I was surprised by the sudden suggestion. A promotion? That's great. Yeah, I've been thinking about children too. I want to start preconception care seriously. And so, our journey into preconception care began. However, it turned out I had difficulty conceiving. And even after 6 months of preconception care, we still hadn't been blessed with a child. I'm sorry. It seems like it didn't happen this month either. And don't apologize, Cynthia. It's not your fault. Every time I felt down, Kevin would gently stroke my head. I'm so grateful to be married to such a kind person. Not just Kevin, but his mother Olivia has also been kind to me lately. Hearing that we were having trouble conceiving, Olivia started visiting us occasionally. She began living alone in an apartment near her home after my father-in-law passed away a few years ago. Olivia, who dotes on her only son Kevin excessively, has been good to me since the beginning of our marriage. Olivia brings over lots of side dishes, saying, "You need to eat nutritious food. Rest up, Cynthia. I'm alone and free, so don't worry about me." I have to take care of Kevin's wife, and she even prepares meals for us. Moreover, Olivia says, "I don't want to impose on Cynthia and never stays to eat with us. No matter how much I invite her, Olivia is such a kind person." Kevin must have grown up with that kindness. I couldn't be more grateful for this blessed environment. Then one day, I was feeling under the weather and lying on the sofa as dinner time approached. Olivia, having heard about it from Kevin, came over with a worried look, bringing dinner she had prepared. "Cynthia, are you okay? This is fried chicken I just made. Kevin hasn't come home from work yet, but I thought I'd bring it over early so you can eat it while it's hot." "Wow, really? Thank you. Won't you be with me, Olivia?" When I invited her, Olivia shook her head. "I already ate at home. I'll go back now," she said and left quickly. I'm happy she's considerate, but I wish we could have a meal together. Maybe I should invite her more firmly next time. While pondering this, I took a bite of the fried chicken Olivia had brought. Instantly, ouch! What I felt was a sharp pain in my cheek, and I let out a small cry. I hurriedly spat out the hard object from my mouth and was shocked at what it was. "What is this? Glass?" It was a piece of glass about 3 inches in size. Was this in the fried chicken? As my heartbeat quickened, desperately I racked my brain. Did Olivia put it in? No, that can't be. Olivia wouldn't do such a thing. Maybe she broke some dishware nearby, and it got mixed in with the batter. Yes, that must be it. Thinking that the kind Olivia could never do something so malicious, I decided not to worry too much about it, despite feeling a little uneasy. Telling her there was glass in the dish made would surely shock her, so I decided not to mention it to either Olivia or Kevin. A week passed, and my health did not improve. Hearing this, Olivia began bringing over dishes almost daily. However, since then, I frequently found foreign objects in the dishes. Hair in the hamburger, bugs in the chili con carne, and it always happened when Olivia brought over dishes just for me before Kevin returned from work. It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? Alarmed, I decided to talk to Kevin. "You know, I'm hesitant to say this, but sometimes there are things like glass shards or bugs in the dishes Olivia brings over. It only happens when she brings dishes just for me. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but it's happening too often." Kevin looked utterly surprised as I spoke. "Mom, she seems to like you, Cynthia, and doesn't look like someone who would harass. But now that you mention it, she's been complaining about her forgetfulness lately. Could she have started developing dementia?" Saying this, Kevin seemed lost in thought. I like Olivia too and don't want to suspect her, but it's scary since it involves food. I've been feeling unwell lately, which makes me even more worried. Yes, I have been feeling unwell since then. Feeling unwell. Haven't you been late on your period this month? Could it be that you're pregnant? Kevin's words made me realize. That's true. I'll go to the hospital tomorrow. Saying this, I was visibly unsettled, and Kevin gently stroked my head. I'll talk to Mom about it tomorrow. I have the day off. If she really might have dementia, we need to think about what to do. Don't worry, Cynthia, okay? Thank you, Kevin. So I left the matter with Olivia to Kevin and decided to visit the hospital the next day. The delay in your period hasn't been long enough to confirm pregnancy yet, but your symptoms are similar to early pregnancy nausea. Please take care not to strain your body too much, said the doctor at the hospital. I returned home, my heart fluttering with hope. I might be pregnant. If that's true, it's finally happening, though it wasn't confirmed yet. I was somewhat elated, unaware of what was to come next. When I got home, Kevin was sitting on the sofa with a troubled look. Mom might be starting to develop dementia. She doesn't remember anything about the foreign objects in the dishes. I'm thinking of taking her to the hospital soon, he said. Hearing this, I felt a mix of relief that Olivia wasn't doing it intentionally and concern that she might have dementia. I installed a caregiving monitoring camera at Mom's house today. This way, we can respond immediately if anything happens to her, Kevin continued. That's good to hear. It eases my mind a bit. I'm mostly at home, so I'll try to keep an eye on it as much as I can, I replied. I missed the chance to tell Kevin about the possibility of being pregnant as I saw him looking downhearted about Olivia. Well, it's not confirmed yet. It's better to report it once I'm sure, I thought. Then, the next day at noon, the doorbell rang. When I looked through the monitor, there was Olivia standing at the front door, holding a large pot. What are you doing with such a big pot? I hurriedly went to greet her. Olivia looked down apologetically. Cynthia, I heard everything from Kevin about foreign objects mixed in dishes. I don't know how to apologize, she said. It's okay. It wasn't intentional, and I noticed everything before swallowing, so there's no harm done to my body. Please don't be too hard on yourself, I reassured her. As I said this, I thought I saw Olivia's eyebrows twitch slightly. I made this beef stew as an apology. You haven't had your period, right? In case you're pregnant, you need to eat nutritious food. I put lots of healthy ingredients in it, so eat up, Olivia said, handing me the pot. Wait, how did you know I haven't had my period? Did Kevin tell you? I asked. Ah, yes, that's right. Kevin sent me a message about it yesterday. Olivia replied hurriedly, almost as if she was in a rush. Thank you, I said, feeling uneasy as Olivia left. I placed the pot Olivia gave me in the kitchen and served myself some beef stew. It was just about lunchtime, so I thought it was a good time to eat. As I sat down and tasted the beef stew, I noticed an indescribably unpleasant flavor. What's this? Could it be a mistake in the seasoning? I wondered. But I couldn't just throw away the beef stew Olivia had made, so I managed to finish the serving I had dished up. However, by then, the strange taste of the stew had made me feel quite ill. As I was washing the dishes, suddenly I felt a sharp pain in my stomach and doubled over on the spot. What is this? Could the beef stew have been spoiled? The pain intensified over time, and I broke out in a cold sweat. Unable to endure it any longer, I called an ambulance with trembling hands. Then I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I saw the stark white ceiling of the hospital. Where am I? Oh, I remember now. My stomach hurt in a daze. I gently rubbed my stomach. It seemed I had already been treated as the pain had subsided. Then, a nurse entered the room. Oh, you're awake. I'll get the doctor right away, she said with a smile and quickly returned with the doctor. Cynthia, how are you feeling? Did you eat something bad before the stomach pain started? A gentle-looking male doctor asked me in a calm tone. Just before, I ate beef stew made by my mother-in-law, Olivia. It tasted a bit off, so maybe it was spoiled, I replied. As I pondered and spoke, the doctor nodded while listening. I see. Given your symptoms, it's likely some bacteria got into your stomach, causing the pain. If it was spoiled, that would make sense. You might continue to experience some abdominal pain for a while, but as long as you take your medicine, you can recover at home, the doctor explained. Hearing his words, I felt a little relieved. I'm relieved it's not serious enough for hospitalization. Please rest quietly here for today. Call us if you need anything, the nurse said before leaving the room. Right after that, the door of the room burst open energetically. Cynthia, are you okay? There stood Kevin, panting, his face pale with worry. Kevin, I'm okay. It seems I ate something bad. They said I can go home if I take the medicine, but I might have to stay here tonight, I explained. Despite telling him it was just food poisoning, Kevin's face remained pale. Cynthia, what did you eat right before the stomach pain started? You don't need to downplay it for my sake. Please tell me the truth, he pleaded earnestly. Surprised by Kevin's earnest expression, I responded, Kevin, you're overreacting over a simple case of food poisoning. Olivia brought over some beef stew, but it seems it was spoiled. I thought it tasted strange, but it's my fault for not stopping her. Olivia was just trying to care for me. Kevin took a deep breath to calm himself and sat down on the chair beside the bed. Cynthia, look at this, he said, taking out a tablet from his bag and showing me the screen. It was a video of Olivia's house. This is it, the monitoring camera you set up at Olivia's place. I asked, and Kevin nodded. Exactly. It's a recording from a few hours ago, when Mom was making the beef stew she brought to you, Kevin explained. Sure enough, Olivia was seen in her kitchen preparing beef stew. There was nothing unusual at first glance. After finishing, Olivia untied her apron and went into the bathroom. Kevin, what is this supposed to mean? I asked, bewildered. Just as I was about to ask, what appeared next on the screen left me speechless. Olivia came back from the bathroom holding a plastic container, then went back into the bathroom again. A few minutes later, she emerged and poured the contents of the container into the stew pot. So the beef stew had Olivia's waste mixed into it. No, can it be? I felt a sudden surge of nausea and covered my mouth with both hands. My heart raced with disgust, and I couldn't stop trembling. On the screen, Olivia was mixing something while stirring the pot with a ladle. I listened closely to her words and froze in horror. Won't allow a child. I won't let anyone take Kevin away from me, Olivia muttered with a fierce expression. I was too terrified to speak, only able to shiver. Kevin held me tightly. I'm sorry, Cynthia. I know this is shocking. When I heard you were staying in the hospital, I went home to get some things and saw Mom's pot in our kitchen. I feared she might have put something strange in it again. When I checked the camera footage, this is what I found. Kevin spoke in a quivering voice. This can't be brushed off as forgetfulness. It's clearly malicious, I whispered, and Kevin apologized deeply. I'm so sorry, Cynthia. I understand if you want a divorce after this. I'm so sorry for what my mom did, he said, shocked. I shook my head in disbelief. Stop it, Kevin. It's not your fault, I spoke in a panic. The door to the hospital room opened with a noise. Kevin, what are you doing? Came Olivia's voice, voicing her surprise as she entered the hospital room. Olivia, the Olivia I had adored until just a moment ago, now seemed so terrifying. I was so scared of Olivia that I couldn't utter a word. Meanwhile, Kevin, without hesitation, approached Olivia as soon as he saw her. Mom, what have you done? He grabbed Olivia's shoulders and shouted loudly. Startled by the sudden confrontation, Olivia's eyes widened. What? What are you talking about? What did I do? She exclaimed, shocked. Don't play dumb. What did you feed Cynthia? Kevin's words were firm. Olivia's expression twitched. Oh no, did I make something strange again? I'm sorry, Cynthia. I'm becoming forgetful lately. Olivia tried to pass it off with a smile. However, Kevin thrust the tablet screen in front of Olivia. It's all recorded here, Mom. Why? Why did you do this? Kevin confronted Olivia with a voice deep with anger. Unable to say anything in return, Olivia just looked down silently. Olivia, did you do all that on purpose? I managed to ask with a trembling voice. Olivia then glared at me with hatred. Yes, it was on purpose. I thought you might be pregnant after hearing about your continued illness. A child with Kevin. I could never allow that. Olivia's face was filled with malice, but I didn't back down. After being so kind to me all this time, why suddenly? If I did something wrong, please tell me, I said, gripping the sheets tightly. Olivia sneered at my desperate expression. Oh, Cynthia, I never liked you. I resented you for taking away my precious only son, but I had to be kind to avoid being disliked by Kevin. Olivia's words sent chills down my spine. But enough was enough. I had always believed in Olivia. I loved her, convinced she wasn't the kind of person to be malicious. But now enough is enough. I felt something inside me go cold. Olivia's revelation shook me to my core. Kevin seemed too drained to be angry anymore. I addressed Olivia with a cold voice, cutting through the air with sternness. Olivia, what you did is a crime. Deliberately contaminating food and planting a listening device in someone's house. Once I recover, I will pursue legal action. Don't think you can get away with this, I declared, surprisingly calm amidst the turmoil of emotions. The anger and fear towards Olivia, the sadness of being betrayed, it all seemed irrelevant now. I feel nothing towards you anymore. Right now, all I want is to be away from someone like you as soon as possible. I will hire a lawyer, so communicate through them from now on, I continued, unmoved by Olivia's shocked expression. Wait a minute, a crime? Am I going to be arrested? It's ridiculous to sue me for this. What do you mean? Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief, trying to downplay her actions. Your actions have caused real harm to my body. There's evidence. Don't think you can talk your way out of it, I asserted firmly. As I spoke, Olivia grabbed Kevin's hand, trembling. That's it, his true nature. She's the kind of woman who bullies an old lady. Scary, isn't it? I did everything thinking of you, Kevin. You understand, don't you? Olivia appealed with a seemingly gentle smile, but Kevin's response was firm. What are you talking about? The scary one is you, Mom. And what you did wasn't for me. It was all for yourself. You hurt someone important to me for your own sake. I never want to have anything to do with you again. Let's cut ties, Kevin said, shaking off Olivia's hand decisively. Kevin, I'm sorry. It was all my fault, please. I have no one but you, Olivia cried out, banging on the door in the hallway. Soon, security came due to the commotion and took Olivia away. Afterwards, my health quickly recovered, and I was able to return home safely upon discharge. We submitted the camera footage to the police, and an investigation began immediately. The listening devices in our house were found, leading to Olivia's swift arrest. Rejected by Kevin, Olivia seemed to have suffered a mental breakdown, crying and wailing during the investigation. I did nothing wrong. It's her fault for trying to take Kevin away, Olivia shouted, lashing out at the officers. Demanding compensation from Olivia, we made her pay a lump sum to cover the damages. Olivia incurred debts and now works in physical labor as a live-in worker, reportedly spending her days working hard and crying alone in her apartment. I told Kevin he didn't need to force himself to legally disassociate from Olivia, but he said, I always knew she had trouble letting go, but I never realized she was so obsessively attached. Now that I know Mom's true nature, I'm afraid to remain in a parent-child relationship with her. He immediately proceeded with the disownement process. A month later, it turned out I was pregnant. Both the baby and I were healthy and developing well. Kevin and I cried with joy and promised each other, let's build a warm family from now on. I want to create a bright future with Kevin and our baby.
Please wait. Don't abandon me here, I pleaded, the desperation in my voice echoing through the desolate mountainside. My husband's response was chillingly indifferent. Return when your leg has mended, he retorted coolly before turning his back on me, leaving me stranded amidst the rugged wilderness. Frantically, I cried out once more, a futile attempt to halt his departure, but his smirk and fleeting glance were all the acknowledgement I received before he vanished into the distance. Left alone, panic enveloped me as I realized the extent of my predicament. With no means of communication and my legs immobilized by plaster casts, I was utterly helpless. Reaching out futilely towards his retreating form, I watched in dismay as he disappeared from sight. The reality sank in. My husband had callously deserted me in this unforgiving terrain. Helplessly sprawled on the ground, I could only watch as he drove away, leaving me to confront my fears alone. My name is Jennifer, a 35-year-old office worker. In my small family unit resides my husband, Robert, a man 3 years my senior, who also toils away in an office setting. Our marriage has reached its third year, yet the pitter-patter of little feet has yet to grace our home. In the realm of domestic duties, Robert adheres strictly to traditional gender roles, leaving the lion's share of household chores squarely on my shoulders. Not only does he shirk any involvement in domestic tasks, but he also exhibits a penchant for demanding my assistance with mundane requests, such as fetching the remote or preparing his tea, even when said items lie within arm's reach. In my initial attempts to rectify this imbalance, I reminded him of my own workload and implored him to lend a hand. His response, steeped in patriarchal entitlement, echoed through our home. "I am the primary breadwinner. It is your duty to attend to such matters." Repeated entreaties for his cooperation were met with disdain, as Robert dismissed my appeals as mere nagging, punctuating his disapproval with ostentatious displays of frustration. Gradually, our interactions soured, his once warm morning greetings replaced by stony silence. Faced with his unyielding stance, I reluctantly assumed sole responsibility for our household chores, resigned to the reality of our domestic dynamic. I must confess, there are moments when the weight of exhaustion from work bears down heavily on me, and I find myself yearning for his assistance. Yet I've learned to endure it in silence, deeming it preferable to the alternative of facing his complaints or enduring his indifference. One fateful day, as I made my way to work, fate intervened in the form of a child teetering perilously close to the edge of a staircase at the train station. Without hesitation, I propelled myself forward, a warning cry escaping my lips as I intercepted the child, shielding him from a potentially calamitous fall. However, in my valiant effort, I too became ensnared in the precarious descent, my body twisting and contorting as gravity pulled us both downward. Amidst the chaotic whirlwind of motion, a sickening snap reverberated through the air, accompanied by searing agony that eclipsed any pain I had ever known. When the dizzying tumult finally subsided, I found myself cradling the stunned child in my arms, relief flooding through me as I assessed his unharmed form. Yet my own attempts to rise were thwarted by the excruciating protests of my limbs. Summoning the aid of station personnel, I implored them to summon an ambulance as I grappled with the throbbing anguish radiating from my broken leg. Transported to the hospital, I reached out to Robert, recounting the harrowing ordeal and beseeching him to join me. "Forgive the inconvenience. It seems I've managed to get myself into quite the predicament," I murmured apologetically over the phone. "Don't concern yourself with apologies. Let's focus on getting you home safely," came Robert's earnest response, his genuine worry providing a flicker of comfort amidst the chaos. "What a thoughtful husband you have," remarked the nurse, her words dripping with admiration as she glanced at Robert. With a smug grin, he replied, "Oh, I always lend a hand around the house," a boastful claim that left me incredulous. Suppressing my astonishment, I opted for silence, unwilling to create a scene in the hospital room. However, upon our return home, Robert's demeanor underwent a drastic transformation. "Hey, I'm famished. Fetch me something to eat, and don't forget to iron this shirt," he barked, assigning me household chores without a hint of consideration. Confined to a wheelchair, I bristled at his demands, unable to comply with his requests. "What can't you see my predicament?" I protested, frustration lacing my words. "You promised to take care of things while I was hospitalized." Taken aback by my reproach, Robert's retort was swift and cutting. "I only said that because you were in the hospital," he snapped, his tone laced with derision. "Just get it done. And let's be realistic here, you couldn't have possibly saved that kid. You're too clumsy, too slow." It became increasingly apparent that Robert harbored doubts about the veracity of my words. "How can you say something so cruel?" I countered, my voice tinged with hurt and disbelief. Unmoved, Robert's concern veered swiftly towards financial matters. "Does it really matter?" he retorted callously. "Are you taking time off work? What about your salary?" His words cut deep, emphasizing his prioritization of money over my well-being. Though I knew I would receive some form of compensation from my job during my absence, it would pale in comparison to my regular earnings. "You can't contribute to household chores or bring in a salary. You're utterly useless." His criticism stung, leaving me speechless and reeling from the unexpected onslaught. As I struggled to process his harsh words, Robert sank into the sofa with a disgruntled sigh, his discontent palpable. "Why did I ever marry you?" he muttered bitterly, his tone dripping with disdain. Bewildered by his hostility, I sought to defend myself. "I didn't choose to be in this condition," I protested weakly. "Enough with your excuses." Robert's retort was sharp and unforgiving. If you have the energy to complain, then start pulling your weight around here. Surely you're capable of that much." His words struck a raw nerve, plunging me into a suffocating sense of despair. Unable to bear his callousness any longer, I found myself blurting out, "That's it. If this is how it's going to be, I'm going back to my parents' house." Robert appeared more than willing to accommodate my decision. "All right then, I'll take you there," he chirped, reaching for the car keys. With minimal preparation, I gathered only the essentials into a bag, relying on my crutches to navigate. However, Robert's assistance was conspicuously absent as I struggled to make my way to the car. "Come on, what's taking so long? Hurry up and get in," he grumbled impatiently, tossing my bag into the car with careless disregard. Irritation oozed from every pore as he settled into the driver's seat, clearly perturbed by the inconvenience. The journey to my parents' home, nestled amidst the mountains, stretched before us, a daunting 2-hour drive. Despite my misgivings about Robert's sudden willingness to accompany me, I had little choice but to rely on his assistance for the time being. As the city lights faded into the rearview mirror, Robert's sour disposition remained unchanged, his irritation palpable with every click of the tongue at each red light we encountered. Lost in contemplation, I resigned myself to pondering my options once I reached the safety of my parents' embrace. However, my reverie was shattered when the car abruptly halted. "What's happening? Did we run out of gas?" I queried, turning to Robert in confusion, only to be met with a venomous command. "Get out of the car here." Perplexed, I protested. "Here? Why? I can't be left stranded in the middle of nowhere." "Shut up. Don't come back until you're able to walk again." His words cut through the air like a whip, leaving me speechless and abandoned in the desolate expanse of the mountain road. Never in my wildest dreams had I envisioned such a nightmare scenario. Despite my frantic attempts to cling to the seatbelt and door, Robert callously ejected me from the car with a forceful shove. My pleas fell on deaf ears as he callously smirked, re-entered the vehicle, and sped off, leaving me stranded on the roadside. Paralyzed by shock and disbelief, I could do naught but cry out in desperation as Robert's car vanished into the distance, taking with it my belongings and any means of communication. Night was fast approaching, casting an ominous shadow over the desolate surroundings. With each passing moment, my sense of helplessness deepened, uncertainty gnawing at my core. Although I had informed my parents of my impending return, the prospect of their rescue felt increasingly remote. Left to my own devices, I resolved to crawl towards civilization, each agonizing inch a testament to my determination to survive. Yet, as exhaustion threatened to engulf me, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of approaching footsteps. A figure clad in jogging attire materialized before me, a beacon of salvation amidst the encroaching darkness. My desperate cries for help caught the attention of the approaching woman, who quickened her pace and hurried over to my side. "What happened? Why are you alone here, and what's with the state of your clothes?" she inquired, her concern evident as she took in the sight of my disheveled appearance and the dirt-streaked cast encasing my leg. Tears welled in my eyes as I recounted the events that had led to my predicament. Moved by my plight, the woman, whose name I would later learn was Patricia, wasted no time in offering assistance. "My home is nearby. I'll fetch my car. Just wait here," she reassured me, draping her windbreaker over my shoulders before hastening off. Gratitude overwhelmed me as I huddled beneath the shelter of her jacket, fervently praying for her swift return. True to her word, Patricia was soon back, her car idling nearby as she extended a helping hand. "Let's get you to the hospital first, then we can figure out where you live," she suggested, her kindness a balm to my wounded spirit. Moved by her selflessness, I suggested we make a detour to my parents' home, fearing their worry for my well-being. Patricia readily agreed, her empathy a soothing presence as we embarked on the journey together. With each passing moment, our conversation deepened, bonding over shared indignation towards the cruelty I had endured at the hands of my husband, Robert. Before I knew it, we had arrived at my parents' doorstep, Patricia's comforting presence a beacon of hope amidst the turmoil. "Thank you so much for your kindness. Please come inside. Let me properly express my gratitude," I urged Patricia, extending an invitation into my home. Initially, she demurred, citing work commitments for the following day. However, recognizing my inability to navigate on my own, she graciously assisted me to the entrance. As we reached the threshold, my mother emerged, her expression a mix of concern and relief. Profusely thanking Patricia, she eventually persuaded her to step inside. Once within, my parents and I showered Patricia with gratitude, overwhelmed by her selfless act of compassion. Seated amidst the warmth of my family's embrace, I recounted the events that had led me back to their doorstep and Patricia's invaluable assistance. What a despicable man. You should divorce him immediately, my father fumed, his anger palpable. You need to rest, my mother interjected, her worry etched across her features. But I had a task at hand. I need to call Robert, I declared, determination driving my actions. With my parents by my side, I reached for the home phone, steeling myself for the conversation that lay ahead. You're home already. Come back as soon as you're healed. Who will take care of the house without you? Robert's tone held no trace of remorse as his callous words echoed through the speakerphone, audible to both me and my enraged parents. Enraged by Robert's callous disregard, my father's voice thundered through the phone, seething with fury. What nonsense is he spouting? He's got some nerve, he bellowed, his anger palpable even from a distance. Beside him, my mother's expression hardened, her disapproval evident. Despite the heated confrontation, Robert remained obstinate, his demands for my return to household duties unabated. The finality in my decision reverberated through the line as I declared, "It's over. Let's get a divorce." A heavy silence followed, punctuated only by Robert's resigned sigh. "Why does it have to come to this?" he lamented, shifting the blame onto me with practiced ease. Exhausted by the emotional turmoil, I terminated the call with a weary sigh, the weight of my decision hanging heavily in the air. In the aftermath, it took considerable effort to soothe my parents' frayed nerves, their anger simmering beneath the surface. The following day, the incessant ringing of the house phone filled the air, a silent testament to the unresolved turmoil brewing between Robert and me. Though the caller remained unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was Robert unwilling to accept the finality of our decision. The incessant ringing of the phone persisted, each call a jarring intrusion into my solitude. Despite my initial reluctance, a nagging suspicion crept in. Perhaps it wasn't Robert after all, given the timing during his work hours. Yielding to curiosity, I answered, only to be met with Robert's frantic voice on the other end. "Finally, why were you ignoring my calls? I need your help. I'm on the verge of being fired." Robert's words spilled out in a desperate torrent, his distress palpable even through the receiver. His plea fell on deaf ears as I coolly retorted, "And what exactly do you expect me to do about it? Your job is your responsibility, not mine," before disconnecting the call with a decisive click. "If he's facing the consequences of his actions, it's well deserved," I mused bitterly, refusing to entertain any further involvement in Robert's affairs. However, a startling revelation soon emerged. Patricia, the woman who had come to my aid, was Robert's mistress. As she listened to my tale during our encounter, a sense of familiarity began to dawn upon her. Her suspicions were confirmed when she overheard Robert's voice during my divorce call. Upon seeing his picture, her world shattered, her anguish mirroring my own shock and betrayal. Blindsided by Robert's infidelity, I seethed with resentment at being deceived and neglected. Yet, it was Patricia's fury that truly ignited a storm within me, her righteous anger far surpassing my own expectations. Together, we navigated the turbulent waters of betrayal, united in our shared sense of betrayal and indignation. As Patricia recounted, she first crossed paths with Robert in her workplace, a subsidiary of his company. Their initial interaction occurred during one of Robert's business visits, sparking a connection that quickly evolved into frequent rendezvous. Robert, keen to escalate their relationship beyond professional boundaries, disclosed his purported divorce history, a narrative reinforced by rumors circulating among their colleagues. Enticed by his seemingly genuine demeanor, Patricia succumbed to Robert's overtures, nurturing dreams of a future together based on his promises of marriage. Little did she know, behind his facade of sincerity lurked a deceitful man who not only concealed his marital status but callously abandoned his injured wife in the wilderness. Consumed by a potent blend of regret and fury at being duped by such a man, Patricia's visage twisted into a chillingly sinister smile. Determined to exact revenge for her betrayal, she orchestrated Robert's downfall, leveraging her connections to ensure his dismissal from his position. Following my decisive dismissal of Robert's pleas, Patricia reached out to relay the consequences of his actions. "He's facing the repercussions now. My uncle, infuriated by his behavior, has terminated his employment," she revealed, her voice tinged with satisfaction at the fulfillment of her vengeance. The uncle Patricia referred to happened to be the president of Robert's company. As it turned out, Patricia and the president shared a familial bond. She was his niece. Patricia, grappling with health issues that restricted her ability to work extended hours, secured a part-time position at her uncle's subsidiary, conveniently located near her residence. During our conversation, Patricia revealed that she had been jogging in the mountains that day, a cost-effective alternative to gym memberships aimed at bolstering her physical strength. Interestingly, the CEO, who lacked children of his own, showered Patricia with affection and support, given their familial ties. However, Patricia had deliberately concealed this relationship from Robert, fearing potential complications due to their distinct surnames and disparate workplaces. "It's best to stay cautious," Patricia cautioned, her tone tinged with concern. My uncle mentioned Robert making inappropriate remarks. "I wouldn't be surprised if he attempts to visit you again." As Patricia had ominously predicted, Robert materialized at my parents' doorstep that very night, his persistent knocks echoing loudly through the stillness of the evening. His voice, strained with anger, reverberated through the door as he unleashed a barrage of accusations. "You're responsible for getting me fired. You need to come with me and explain everything to the boss and apologize." Robert's tirade was fueled by his belief that my alleged collusion with Patricia had led to his termination. In his skewed version of events, I had embellished details of his affair to Patricia, thereby triggering a misunderstanding with the boss. As the gravity of the situation dawned on me, I realized the true meaning behind Patricia's cryptic warning of Robert's inappropriate behavior. However, before I could formulate a response, my father, unaware of the brewing storm, had already swung open the front door, unwittingly inviting Robert's wrath into our home. "Enough with your excuses. How dare you demand an apology from my daughter after betraying her trust? You got what was coming to you. Now, get out." My father's voice thundered with righteous indignation as he forcefully ejected Robert from our doorstep, slamming the door shut and locking it behind him. Yet the commotion outside persisted, Robert's pleas for forgiveness echoing through the walls. Taking a deep breath, I addressed Robert through the intercom, determined to set the record straight. "Let me make something abundantly clear since you still seem oblivious. You believe you were fired for merely laying hands on the boss's niece. You're sorely mistaken." The boss thoroughly explained the situation from start to finish. From the CEO's standpoint, this wasn't just a run-of-the-mill affair. It was viewed as a parent company exploiting a subsidiary employee into an extramarital relationship. Your status as a part-time employee placed you in a vulnerable position, and your actions were deemed unacceptable. I continued, my tone unwavering. The CEO admonished you countless times, yet you remained fixated on the affair. Understand this. It wasn't merely about whom you were involved with this time. It was about the gross misconduct of a parent company exploiting its subsidiary. Regardless of the other party's identity, such behavior would warrant dismissal. If you can't grasp how ludicrous your claims are, you're deluding yourself. If you don't want to add arrest to your list of woes, leave now. And as for the divorce, be prepared to face legal consequences. I declared firmly, cutting through Robert's protests with unwavering resolve. Only then did a stunned silence descend upon the scene. With Robert's departure, tranquility settled once more over my parents' home. In the aftermath, I wasted no time in seeking legal recourse. Consulting with Patricia, we devised a plan to hold Robert accountable for his actions. I initiated divorce proceedings, determined to sever all ties with him. Additionally, Patricia and I jointly pursued legal action against Robert, seeking damages for the pain and suffering inflicted upon us. I sued Robert for the emotional anguish of betrayal and deception, while Patricia sought recompense for the emotional toll of being misled into a relationship under false pretenses. Together, we resolved to ensure that Robert faced the full consequences of his deceitful actions. After Robert's dismissal, he found himself in dire financial straits without any severance pay to fall back on. Desperate for assistance, he turned to his parents for help. However, his plea for financial aid fell on deaf ears when they learned of my decision to divorce him. Incensed by his actions, they refused to offer any support. Left with no other options, Robert's parents reluctantly arranged for him to secure employment at a company they were acquainted with. In this new role, Robert found himself at the lowest rung of the corporate ladder, stripped of the perceived superiority he once held as a member of a parent company or subsidiary. His presence was a constant reminder of his transgressions, and he was subjected to menial tasks and disdainful glances on a daily basis. Despite Robert's humiliating circumstances, neither Patricia nor I harbored any sympathy for him. Our sole concern was ensuring that he met his financial obligations, particularly in terms of alimony. We remained indifferent to his treatment and the source of his income, focused solely on securing the compensation we rightfully deserved. With time, my fractured relationship with Robert healed, and I found solace in the company of Patricia's friends. Together, we pursued legal action, resulting in a favorable outcome that provided us with a substantial sum in damages. Buoyed by this success, we began making plans for a well-deserved trip, eager to leave the past behind us and embrace a brighter future. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something," I said, gathering my courage. "Can we cut back on having your mom over every weekend?" My husband let out a deep sigh. "Lisa, it feels like you're always saying no to everything." "What do you mean by that?" I asked, a bit taken aback. "You don't want me to build a house. You don't want my mom coming over. You're always against something." "That's not what I meant," I tried to explain. "Then what did you mean? How much longer do we have to keep waiting?" "My name is Lisa, and I've been married to Frank for 5 years. We share a common dream, owning our own home. Now that we've saved enough for a down payment, we're finally ready to leave behind renting and move into the home I've always envisioned. Once we're settled, we plan to start a family and raise our children in a place that truly belongs to us." But just as our hopes were growing, a dark cloud appeared on the horizon. My mother-in-law, who had caught wind of our plans, began making some rather unsettling moves. "So, I hear you're finally buying a house," she said. "Yes, that's right," I replied. "Have you already decided on what kind of home you want?" "Yes, I have an idea of what we want," I said. "That's wonderful. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." "Thank you, I appreciate that." "Oh, by the way, have you checked out the showroom near your house?" "No, we haven't managed to get an appointment there yet," I replied. "Well, I'll take care of that for you. We can go together." "Actually, I prefer to go with just my husband," I said, trying to be polite. Despite my efforts, my mother-in-law continued to involve herself in our property search. She even started showing up unannounced. "I brought you a brochure for some land that's for sale," she said one day, catching me off guard. "Thank you very much." My mother-in-law held a dozen leaflets in her hand, eager to share them. "How about this one? It's close to the station and spacious enough for 2 families." Wait, did she just say 2 families? I was too stunned to respond, and she continued talking as if nothing was amiss. "If the train station isn't nearby, it's inconvenient for everything, and you'll want to be close to a hospital for when you get older. This property is also near a supermarket. It must be hard for you to choose with so many options, right?" What started as an offer to help quickly turned into her taking control of the house search. She was making decisions as if she planned to live there too. This is not good at all. I told my husband everything that had happened that night. "Oh, I think she might have mentioned something about living together," he said casually. "What? You want us all to live together?" I asked, surprised. "Well, if you're okay with it, I'm not going to push you into anything, don't worry." I felt blindsided by his response. If I'm okay with it? No, I'm not. I couldn't believe he was being so indecisive. When it's time to tell my mother-in-law that we're not living together, I'm going to be the one dealing with the fallout. Why can't he see that? "Maybe we should stop building the house," I suggested, feeling frustrated. "What? Why?" he asked, clearly confused. "Because of the way you phrased it. If I refuse to live with her, she'll know I was the one who said no. We're going to be together for a long time, and I don't want things to become awkward. I'd rather not have a house if it means dealing with that. We can raise our kids in a rental and use the down payment we save for their education instead." My husband's panic was evident. "Wait a minute, I understand now. I'll tell her no, and we'll move forward with building the house." "No, it's fine. You can't even stand up to your mother." I'd never seen him stand up to his mother before. "Trust me, I'll handle it," he said, trying to reassure me. "Why are you so desperate?" he asked, sounding puzzled. "I want to live in our own house and raise our children there," I replied. "You didn't seem so enthusiastic about it before." "That's not true. I was excited. It's hurtful to say otherwise. I feel just as strongly about our children." "All right, I understand. My husband promised he would tell his mother no, but given his usual hesitation, I doubted he'd follow through. However, the day after our conversation, my mother-in-law stopped pressuring us and even called to apologize. Lisa, I got scolded by Frank. He told me he wants to live with you alone. I'm sorry for pushing my opinions on you, my mother-in-law said. I was surprised to hear that Frank had actually stood up to her. He could speak his mind when it mattered. Still, I couldn't shake a lingering suspicion. When I told my husband about the apology, he had a satisfied grin on his face. See? When I say I'll speak up, I mean it. What's with that look in your eyes? I asked, puzzled. I was wondering if you really told her, I said, still unsure. Are you doubting me? Isn't that awful? He replied, hurt. I haven't seen you stand up to your mother in 5 years, and you didn't do it in front of me. That's unfair. I tried so hard. You're right, I'm sorry. But you're sweating like crazy. What's going on? Oh, it's just hot. Isn't it a bit warm today? It's the middle of winter. By the way, let's finalize the house contract. You really want to build this house, don't you? Of course I do. That's what we've been saving for. At this point, I had lost interest in building the new house, the dream home I had worked so hard to save for. My enthusiasm had dwindled due to my mother-in-law's behavior and my husband's attitude, making me feel as if all my efforts had been in vain. I found myself stepping back from the idea. Meanwhile, my husband continued to insist on building the house. 6 months had passed since our dispute, and although he kept talking about it, I remained unconvinced. My mother-in-law, who had been quiet, was now growing impatient. She started visiting our house frequently. While she never mentioned the house, her attitude became increasingly arrogant. Both my husband and I work full-time, and we both have weekends off. Lately, my mother-in-law has been coming over to our house every weekend. I could manage if it were just once a month, but her frequent visits are making me uncomfortable. My husband seems to be quite pleased with the arrangement, but it's becoming a problem for me. I'd like to have some peace on Saturdays and Sundays, but she arrives at 7 in the morning and blasts the TV at an incredibly loud volume. If I try to stay in bed, she paces back and forth in front of my room. My husband is busy taking care of her, which should be enough. When I finally gave in and got up at 7:30, she remarked, "How can you sleep in with a guest over? She stays until late on Sunday night, and it's starting to wear me down." My husband remains silent about his mother's behavior, and whenever I think of him, the word divorce crosses my mind. However, I want to avoid that if at all possible. I needed to find a way to improve the situation. "Hey, I need you to stop having your mother over every weekend," I said, expressing my feelings directly. He let out a deep sigh. "Lisa, you always seem to be against everything." "What do you mean by that?" "You don't want to build a house, you don't want my mother visiting. You're against everything." "That's not how I meant it." "Then what did you mean? How long do we have to wait for?" "You just said we. What did you mean by that?" "Who else is waiting?" I asked, confused. "What do you mean?" "You said we just now," I clarified. My husband's face turned red and he began to sweat. "I didn't say that. Maybe I misheard. But we can't build a house if your mother keeps coming over every weekend like this." "Why not?" "Because I can't relax. If my parents came over every weekend, would you be able to rest?" "Your parents won't come. They have such a nice house." "I'm fed up with this nonsense," I said, frustrated. "That's not the issue here," he retorted. "I don't even care about the house anymore. I'm going to invite my parents to stay with us next week." My husband's voice rose. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "Because it's too exhausting. Don't invite your parents. My mother is the only one who can visit. This is my house too. I'm the head of the house. If you can't follow my rules, then leave." "Are you serious?" "You're completely useless to me. I'm done with you. You can't make my mother happy, and if we can't build a house, she can't live with us." "You promised she wouldn't live with us." "What are you talking about? Once the house was built, we could do whatever we wanted, including having my mother live with us." "What do you mean?" "I've told you this before, and you still don't understand. I planned to have my mother move in once the house was built." I knew it. My mother-in-law didn't back down easily. My husband was plotting with her all along. "I see now. All right, I'll leave." "I hope you won't regret this," he said. "Of course not. Just don't come near me again," I replied firmly. I packed only the essentials and went to my parents' house. They were taken aback by my sudden arrival, but once I explained what had happened, They welcomed me with open arms. This is what family is for, right? I suppose our relationship was damaged from the start when I couldn't trust my husband, I said. Dad, I'm so sorry, I added, feeling the weight of my actions. I understand things didn't work out between you two, but work and personal life are separate issues. Yes, I agree. So my ex-husband and I are now divorced. There were no money claims or financial disputes, just a straightforward division of property. But 3 months have passed. And now my ex-husband is on his knees in front of me. I'm sorry, father-in-law, he says. I'm not your father anymore. Be careful what you call me. Boss, is this a result of me divorcing your daughter? What are you talking about? Why did my ex-husband come all the way to my parents' house and get down on his knees? It's because he received an unwanted transfer. Both of us worked for my father's company, and he seems to believe the transfer was a consequence of our divorce. However, my father made it clear during the divorce that personal matters had no bearing on work decisions. All employees at his company are assigned to regional posts for a few years to enhance their skills, and transfers are never used as a form of punishment. But that explanation doesn't seem to satisfy my ex-husband. Lisa, you need to stop the boss. I thought you told me never to show my face again. I'm sorry, please, he begged. No, this isn't an obligation. I was once in line to be the next president, remember? I can't believe you interrupted me with such nonsense. You're mistaken. I'm still the next president, regardless of our divorce. What? Of course, I'm his daughter. My ex-husband nodded and left our house. The next day, he submitted his resignation, despite people around him trying to explain that the transfer wasn't a demotion. He refused to listen. A few days later, he was found in an unexpected place. I was casually watching a documentary on TV when I saw my ex-husband featured on the program. He appeared in line at a volunteer organization for a meal donation, looking disheveled and poorly dressed. Life can be unpredictable. It made me reconsider the word regret that I once said to him. I'm sure he regrets his actions now. The fact that he was holding 2 meal containers suggested that one was meant for his mother. Although I don't know all the details, it's clear that his life has drastically changed from what it once was. As for me, I'm thriving on my own. My weekdays are filled with work, but I relish my days off. It's a true blessing to sleep soundly without morning disruptions. I am living in a state of happiness and contentment. It was the unexplained coldness of her ex-husband that had caused her so much pain, a pain she struggled to convey to others. She wished she could use that experience as a shield to say no to her in-laws. Lisa, you did an excellent job. I hope you're able to enjoy your time on your own now. My name is Molly, and I'm 32 years old. I'm married to Justin, who is 35 and works in an office. I work as a freelance fashion designer from home. My career started with many small, exciting projects, but it wasn't until I landed a significant project with a substantial paycheck that things really changed. This opportunity allowed Justin and me to move into a luxurious high-rise apartment, something I had always wanted. Since I was the one who had dreamed of living in such a place, I agreed to cover the monthly rent myself. Justin was thrilled about the new apartment, and I thought our future together looked bright. I couldn't have anticipated what was about to happen next. One day, Justin brought his 65-year-old mother, Betty, to our place. Her husband had passed away 3 years ago, and she had been living alone since then. Hi, Molly, Betty greeted me. Hi, Betty, it's been a while. What's going on? Well, Justin began awkwardly, she wants to move in with us. Why? I asked, surprised. Justin explained that Betty's house was deteriorating, and she wanted to move to a better place. She didn't have much money, so she hoped to stay with us temporarily. I understood the situation but wasn't thrilled about it. Our apartment was a haven for just the two of us, and Betty, whom I barely knew, felt like a stranger. I was reluctant to have her join us. Please, Justin said, taking my hands. Her house is falling apart. I promise I'll urge her to find a smaller, newer place as soon as possible. Reluctantly, I agreed, thinking it would only be for a short while. A month later, Betty moved in. Thank you so much for letting me stay in this wonderful apartment, she said. No problem, I replied with a forced smile. Please make yourself at home. But soon after settling in, Betty approached me with an unexpected request. Sorry to dive right in, but may I borrow some money? I was taken aback. As soon as she had unpacked her things, she was asking me for money. I was taken aback by Betty's directness. I've been seeing the doctor a lot lately, and it's been costing me money. I just need a little bit, please. How much are you asking for? I inquired. Around $300 for now, she said. Given her age, it wasn't surprising that she might be facing health issues, and I could understand that medical expenses could add up quickly. I reached into my purse, found $650, and handed it to her. Then, one day, Justin came to me with a request. I was unsettled, fearing it might be related to Betty. You know, we should get a new car, he said. I was so surprised that I nearly fell out of my chair. What do you mean? We just bought a car 2 years ago. Well, it's too small, Justin explained. I couldn't understand why the size of the car mattered. It was sufficient for the two of us, or three if you counted Betty. Why did the size need to change? My mom doesn't like it, Justin added. I was baffled. Why was Betty complaining about a car that wasn't hers? She wants a more luxurious car, like a Mercedes, Justin said. I was completely lost. Changing cars for such a trivial reason seemed unreasonable. Besides, could Betty even drive? I'm not buying an expensive car. Tell her it's not happening, I said firmly. At the time, it was clear to me that this request made no sense. Betty's complaints about the car seemed to never end, and soon she came to me again, asking for money. My medical bills have become more expensive, and I'm falling behind on payments. Could you help me out again? She pleaded. Should I be concerned about your health? I asked, worried. Betty hesitated before responding. Not really. I'm just feeling a bit depressed and having trouble sleeping. The therapist is quite costly. I'm really sorry for asking. I understand. How much do you need this time? I asked. About $1,000, she said. $1,000. I was taken aback. The amount seemed excessive for therapy, though I wasn't well versed in the costs. I'm sorry, I said, but my insurance only covers a limited number of sessions fully, and after that, I have to pay half of the charges. I see, Betty replied. I'll get it by tomorrow. Despite my shock at the amount, I tried to rationalize it, thinking perhaps there were high costs associated with the therapy. Even after that, Betty continued to find reasons to borrow more money, citing medical bills and transportation costs for visiting sick friends. By the time I realized, the total amount she had borrowed had reached $5,000. Although my job was going well, I was becoming increasingly frustrated. That's when I noticed something strange. One day, I couldn't help but peek into Betty's room. To my shock, I found designer bags and wallets neatly displayed on a shelf. I was stunned. How could she afford such luxurious items when she claimed to be struggling financially? She had borrowed so much money from me. Yet her room was filled with expensive goods. I grew increasingly suspicious of the medical bills she'd been asking for. A month later, Betty approached me again, asking for more money with no hint of remorse. Can you please wait? She said casually. I decided it was time to confront her. I called Justin, who seemed unaware of the situation. I need to ask you about Betty, I said. What exactly is she using the money for? What's going on, Molly? Justin asked, clearly confused. Betty mumbled something about therapy sessions and prescriptions, but I pressed further. And what about the designer clothes, bags, and other items? Are you really seeing a therapist? Of course, Betty replied, but her hesitation was clear. If that's the case, show me the receipts. You must have them, right? I demanded. Cornered by my questioning, Betty was at a loss for words. It became evident that she wasn't using the money for her well-being, but for something else entirely. Justin, still puzzled, asked, Wait, what are you guys talking about? Betty has been spending the money she borrowed from me, more than $5,000, on luxury items, I explained. Even so, you're being too aggressive. Can you talk to her more gently? Justin said, his loyalty clearly lying with his mother. In other words, he was a mama's boy. I don't have receipts, Betty admitted. I have been shopping and dining out with friends. I was taken aback. You seem so relaxed despite claiming to be broke. You didn't seem depressed at all. If you've been lying, you need to pay me back immediately. Betty's eyes were full of desperation. I can't come up with that amount right away. Frustrated, I pointed to the designer items in her room. Sell all of those things. If you can't, then move out. Justin, ever the defender, intervened. Hey, you're being unfair. She deserves a little luxury too. I wouldn't call it luxury. I shot back. More than $5,000 has been squandered. This feels like a scam. Justin countered. You're being disrespectful. Just because you're paying the rent doesn't give you the right to be so arrogant. If you're unhappy, then you can leave, he said. What? I was incredulous. I was reaching my boiling point. Steam seemed about to burst from my ears as I glared at him. Did I say anything wrong? You're the one who brought Betty here in the first place. You do nothing but lounge around at home. Thanks to you, I'm stuck living with this mess. You're so condescending, it's infuriating. Get out now, I snapped. Rage consumed me. Fine. Don't regret this, Justin said, grabbing only the essentials and leaving the apartment. I found a new place quickly. As a remote worker, I could do my job from anywhere. I wasn't fixated on living in a high-rise as long as my new home was comfortable. So now, what was next? I had no intention of returning to that place. I had been covering the rent on my own, and I assumed Justin had no interest in taking over. Even if he wanted to, his paycheck wouldn't be enough to cover it. My income far exceeded his. I consulted with a realtor who had assisted me before. I explained that, due to personal reasons, it had become very difficult to manage the monthly rent. Although I could technically afford it, I chose to downplay my situation. I'm sorry to hear that. What would you like to do? The realtor asked. I asked for his help with the situation. One day, while I was working, I received a call from Justin. What's going on? I answered, puzzled. Why didn't you tell me? Justin demanded. I was told to move out because the lease was canceled. Yes, I asked the property agent to break the lease, I explained. Since I don't live there anymore, I don't see why I should continue paying the rent. But my mom and I still live there, Justin protested. I was stunned. What? That's absurd. I don't live there, so why should I keep covering the apartment? If you're in trouble, you should talk to your mom and maybe sell some of her things to raise the money, I suggested. I was incredulous and frustrated. It seemed Justin's sense of entitlement had no bounds. I spoke with a hint of sarcasm. Well, you were the one who wanted to live in a high-rise. If you're not ready to move, why don't you take over the lease yourself? Oh wait, you probably can't afford it with your salary. Justin seemed at a loss for words. You know, you should be able to manage a modest apartment. So go ahead and deal with it. Move in with your mom. Are you kidding me? I retorted. My mom has already used up her savings from selling her house. I don't have any extra funds myself. How do you expect me to find a new place? That's not my problem, he replied. I couldn't understand how he still had no savings when he had been relying on my income. The entitlement and irresponsibility of both him and his mother were astounding. You've brought this upon yourselves with your foolishness, I said. From now on, figure it out on your own. Are you saying we should be homeless? You're still my wife, Justin pleaded. I've told you, figure it out elsewhere. I'm done with this. Goodbye. I hung up the phone. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Betty. Mally, I'm really sorry, she said, her voice trembling. I will pay you back, so please don't kick us out. Her tearful plea surprised and saddened me. I didn't want to lecture her, but I felt I needed to explain. You should live within your means. If you only have a small retirement income, you should adjust your lifestyle accordingly. If you want a higher standard of living, you need to work for it. I knew the harsh reality as a freelancer. If I wanted a certain quality of life, I had to work hard and earn it rather than relying on others. I understand, Betty said. I'm sorry. Please don't let us end up on the street. I'm sorry, I replied, my voice softening. But you need to manage your finances better. The apartment had already been leased to someone else. You really need to move out, I told Betty coldly. This is a matter of regulation. I ended the call with finality. Later, the realtor informed me that Justin and Betty had pleaded with him to keep the lease, but he told them that a new tenant was moving in soon and they had to leave. Even if they had stayed, Justin's salary would have been swallowed up by the rent, leaving them unable to afford anything else. It was absurd for them to expect me to continue supporting their living situation while Justin relied on me. His outbursts had pushed things past the point of no return. I was frustrated and resolved that this was the end. Justin and Betty were left without an apartment and were moving from one motel to another because they couldn't afford the broker's fee or deposit, and no one was willing to be their guarantor. Betty had worked only briefly, so her Social Security payments were minimal, and they were struggling even to eat. I felt they had brought this upon themselves. On my end, I secured another major project and became more financially stable. Looking back on our marriage, I realized that depending solely on a partner, financially or otherwise, is unsustainable. It leads to significant pain when things fall apart. Justin and I separated for a while and eventually divorced. Our feelings had cooled, and there was no reason to stay together. Now that we're estranged, I feel a sense of relief. If I were to marry again, I'd be more discerning. The divorce taught me valuable lessons about life and relationships, and I plan to take my time finding the right partner.
You're nothing without me, Jolene. His words sliced through me like glass shards, each syllable dripping with disdain. I gazed at Dalton's cold, expressionless face, searching desperately for any sign of the charming man I fell in love with 2 decades ago. But his steel blue eyes held no warmth, only a harsh reminder that the partnership I had built my life around was crumbling before me. I drew a sharp breath as the weight of his dismissal sank into my bones. After years of emotional manipulation, of walking on eggshells and making excuses for his lies, I was determined not to let him have the last word. "Get out," I said, my voice low but firm. Dalton cocked an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "You can't be serious, Jolene." "I mean it," I said. "I want you out of this house tonight." I held his glare, refusing to show weakness, though my hands trembled at my sides. Dalton let out a sharp laugh. "And where would I go? You really think you can just throw me out after everything I've done for you?" He took a menacing step toward me. "You owe me, Jolene. Everything you have is because of me." I flexed my fingers, digging my nails into my palms as I fought to restrain the fury bubbling inside me. He was right about one thing. Everything of material value I owned was because of him, because I had sacrificed my education, my dreams, my very identity to support Dalton's ambitions while he built his empire wheeling and dealing in real estate. I had worked tirelessly behind the scenes, hosting his clients, raising our son, managing his affairs, so Dalton was free to secure bigger deals and reap the fortunes. Only now, standing face to face in our lavish but coldly impersonal house, did I fully grasp how I had squandered decades enabling a man who clearly no longer valued me. "Get out," I repeated through gritted teeth, pointing at the hallway leading to the front door. "I'm done being your dutiful wife. If you won't leave tonight, I will." Dalton's smug expression faltered. He blinked hard before his mouth twisted into a snarl. "What has gotten into you?" He grabbed my shoulders, his fingers biting into my skin. "Is this about that country club receptionist? That little fling meant nothing to me. She was just a warm body when you were too busy or tired or whatever excuse you always have." His callous words sparked an image in my mind. The pretty blonde giggling on Dalton's lap last weekend, her fingers trailing along his chest. Nausea rose in my gut as the reality of his latest infidelity stared me in the face. I wrenched from his grasp, hot tears stinging my eyes. "Just go," I whispered. "Please, Grant deserves better than to have his final years tainted by the unraveling of his only son's marriage." At the mention of his ailing father, Dalton's face softened slightly. He studied me for a long moment before sighing loudly. "Fine, but we are far from over, Jolene," he warned. He brushed past me toward the bedroom, emerging minutes later with an overnight bag. He paused at the front door. "You really think you can make it out there without me?" He shook his head with a sneer. "Mark my words, you'll come crawling back." The door slammed shut behind him with an air of grim finality. I stood rigid, listening to the fading crunch of gravel as Dalton's sleek Mercedes disappeared into the night. In the deafening stillness, I became startlingly aware of my aloneness. I roamed from room to room, engulfed by the gnawing emptiness within me, which slowly solidified into a cold but unyielding determination. Dalton had underestimated me for the final time. Waking abruptly, I was momentarily disoriented by my unfamiliar surroundings. As consciousness settled in, the events of the previous night flooded back. Dalton's callous dismissal, our explosive argument, and his dramatic departure. Sitting up on the plush guest room sofa, where I had collapsed in the early hours, I was greeted by the first rays of dawn seeping through the tall windows, casting a mocking cheerfulness about the room. Swinging my legs over the side, I buried my head in my hands with a groan, grappling with the question of what to do next. My entire adult life had revolved around Dalton, supporting his career, raising our son, managing our social calendar and household affairs. Now, for the first time in decades, I was utterly alone. A wave of melancholy washed over me as I reminisced about simpler times, sharing secret smiles over the bakery counter with a charming business student who had tirelessly pursued me during my freshman year of college. Dalton had been enchanting in those early days, lavishing me with affectionate gestures and gifts. I was the pride of my small hometown when the most eligible bachelor chose me. When Dalton proposed just 8 months after we met, I stunned my family by dropping out of school to plan our whirlwind wedding. Caught up in the intoxicating rush of young love, I couldn't fathom denying Dalton anything. However, as Dalton's ambitions swelled, the sweet gestures gradually faded. He criticized my modest career aspirations, convincing me that staying home with future children was paramount. I buried my needs and independence to support his relentless climb up the corporate ladder. Somewhere along the way, amidst the demands of work, parenthood, and societal expectations, we ceased to be partners. Dalton's ego and self-interest consumed us both. Rising slowly from the couch, resigned to face this new and daunting phase of life alone, I began to gather my belongings. My gaze fell upon the antique desk in the corner of the room, another flashy sign of Dalton's growing wealth. On impulse, I pulled open the top drawer, where amidst the clutter of pens and rubber bands, my fingers brushed against a small, unfamiliar box, my heart racing. I retrieved the velvet case and unclasped it with trembling hands. Nestled inside was a gorgeous diamond tennis bracelet, glinting boldly in the morning light. Fresh anger coursed through me as I pictured Dalton fawning over one of his flings with this extravagant gift. It was yet another representation of his selfishness, lavishing treasures on his whims while I made do with the same jewelry he had given me decades ago. My bitterness swelled, usurping the grief that had threatened to overwhelm me. Dalton had smugly declared I couldn't survive without him, convinced I would never walk away from the comfortable life his wealth afforded. Staring down at the diamond bracelet, a bold idea took shape. Dalton wasn't the only one who could play dirty. If he wanted to underestimate me, I would show him just how cunning I could be. Snapping the box closed, I tucked it into my bag with renewed resolve. I had calls to make, an overpriced divorce lawyer, a savvy real estate agent, perhaps even a private investigator. I refused to emerge from this marriage broken and destitute, simply because Dalton assumed that was my only option. For the first time in years, I felt fully in control of my choices. Come what may, I would land on my feet, and karma willing, I would bring Dalton to his knees in the process. My heels clicked purposefully across the marble foyer as I returned home from my legal consultation, echoes underscoring my determination. The conversation replayed in my mind. With no prenuptial agreement in place, you have considerable leverage in the divorce settlement, my cutthroat lawyer had said, especially given the length of the marriage and assets involved. I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile as I set my bag down on the kitchen island, the weight of the unknown tennis bracelet still tucked inside serving as a tangible reminder of Dalton's deception. My plotting was interrupted by footsteps and a shocked gasp behind me. I spun around to find Lucia, our housekeeper, clutching her chest in the kitchen doorway. "Mrs. Harris, you gave me such a fright. I did not expect anyone else to be home," she explained. Lucia had worked for our family for over a decade, her warm and non-judgmental presence a rare constant in recent years. "I'm so sorry, Lucia," I replied. "It's been a difficult couple of days around here, as I'm sure you know." Lucia nodded, her eyes gentle and understanding. "I cannot believe Mr. Harris would do this to you. You have been so good to him through all these years," she said. I sighed, the truth of her words hitting painfully close to home. All those years compromising my needs and dreams to support Dalton's ambitions. What did I have to show for it now? Just yesterday, it seemed I had lost everything. Yet Lucia's compassion and my lawyer's assurances were kindling a small but growing fire inside, steeling me for the fight ahead. "Thank you, Lucia," I said. "Your support means so much to me right now." I wasn't sure I could get through this, but I'm starting to realize. I discovered that I'm a lot stronger than Dalton ever gave me credit for. Just then, the faint sound of the front gate opening drew our attention. Moments later, Dalton strolled casually into the kitchen. Lucia, and I stared at him incredulously. "Jolene, there you are." I swung by the office and had a chat with my father, Dalton said breezily, as if nothing were amiss. He convinced me we need to figure this thing out, not toss away 22 years just because you're going through some hormonal mood swing. He glanced at Lucia. "Would you mind giving us a few minutes?" I stood frozen as Lucia nodded and slipped quietly from the room. Dalton turned to me, his expression softening. "Come now, Joe. I know things got a little heated the other night." He reached for my hand. "We're under a lot of pressure. What with father's illness, Alex graduating, and work being more demanding than ever." When I still didn't respond, he gently grabbed my shoulders. "I forgive you for your little outburst, all right? Why don't we take a weekend trip to the vineyard? Just the two of us, reconnect, and hit the reset button." My blood boiled at his audacity to waltz back in here expecting reconciliation after everything he had put me through. I wrenched from his grasp, my voice dripping with venom. "You arrogant bastard, get out before I have you thrown out." Dalton blinked in surprise. "Jolene, please, just listen," he began, but I cut him off. "No, you listen. I saw the bracelet, Dalton." His face paled. "Our marriage is over. So be yourself a favor and leave with whatever shred of dignity you have left, instead of making this uglier than it needs to be." Dalton's shell-shocked expression shifted to cold rage. He stepped forward, jabbing his finger toward me as he spat his reply. "You'll regret this, Jolene. I promise you that." I awoke the next morning feeling truly rested for the first time in recent memory. Dalton's latest attempt to manipulate me had only affirmed I was on the right path. I stretched lazily, surprised to realize I had slept through the night without aid of my usual sleeping pills. Throwing back the covers, I headed for the shower with fresh resolve, the conversation with my lawyer replaying in my mind. Document everything from this point forward. Every financial record you can get your hands on, any evidence of affairs. It will only strengthen your position. By the time I finished blow-drying my hair, I was brimming with purpose. I quickly dressed and headed straight for Dalton's home office. If he thought he could intimidate me into staying with veiled threats, he had another thing coming. I took control of my future as I rifled through Dalton's meticulously organized drawers and files, my hands expertly guiding me to the most relevant documents. Bank statements, investment reports, loan applications. I assembled anything that provided transparency into our financial lives. Anything I could leverage to ensure I emerged from this divorce securely on my own 2 feet. Nearly 2 hours passed in a blur before I heard movements elsewhere in the house. I scrambled to return the home office to its original pristine condition just as Lucia appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Harris, pardon the interruption, but your lawyer is on the phone," she said tentatively. My heart leaped with renewed motivation. Snatching up my stuffed briefcase, I squeezed Lucia's shoulder appreciatively as I hurried past. "Lou, you're a gem. Wish me luck," I called over my shoulder. Safely sequestered in my makeshift bedroom suite, I eagerly accepted the call. My lawyer's smooth voice greeted me on the other end of the line. "Jolene, I have an update. My investigator uncovered something rather interesting." What followed was perhaps the final missing piece of the puzzle. In addition to evidence corroborating Dalton's long-term affair with his assistant, my lawyer had discovered questionable activity around my husband's latest real estate project. It appears Dalton and his business partner may be intentionally devaluing the property on paper while projecting high future returns to investors, he explained. "It's not definitive fraud yet, but it's ethically questionable at minimum." I shook my head in disgust as I realized I had only scratched the surface of Dalton's deceit. After profusely thanking my lawyer for the update, I hung up the phone feeling more empowered than ever. I now held the keys for my liberation from Dalton's toxic web in every sense, emotionally, financially, socially. Emboldened by this newfound evidence, I found myself actually hoping Dalton would try confronting me again. I would relish seeing the smug smile wiped clean off his face when he realized I now held all the cards. The fantasy faded as unwelcome sadness momentarily softened my resolve. Somewhere under the arrogance and duplicity lurked the man who had once made me feel cherished. I said a silent goodbye to that Dalton, the one who existed before success corrupted him completely. With peace in my heart, I tucked away the memory of him for good, along with any lingering doubts about my path forward. This was my life now, and I refused to let anyone control my fate ever again. I stared in disbelief at the documents spread across the desk before me. Financial statements, private emails, company memos, all pointing to the same devastating truth. Dalton had lied. My husband was facing bankruptcy and hadn't bothered to give me even the slightest warning. I sank back in the leather desk chair, my heart pounding as the reality of my predicament sunk in. All those years sacrificing for Dalton's ambitions, and now there was apparently nothing left to show for it. Even the lavish house I sat in was headed for foreclosure. Hot tears stung my eyes. How could I have been so stupid and naive? Of course, Dalton would find new ways to deceive me right up until the bitter end. My sadness quickly hardened into rage as I considered how easily Dalton could have hidden assets or squirreled away funds, anticipating our divorce. I rifled through the papers again, seeking clues, but found nothing concrete. My phone buzzed loudly, jolting me from my frantic research. I glanced at the caller ID, my lawyer. Taking a deep breath to steady my voice, I answered. "Jolene, I'm so sorry about this news," came the somber greeting. "Dalton has kept his financial struggles painfully quiet, it seems, but there may still be options." "Don't apologize," I interjected firmly. "You've given me a gift with the truth. No matter what Dalton tries now, he can't manipulate me anymore." I meant every word with clarity, with conviction. I refused to cower and panic in reaction to Dalton's lies. Not this time. After discussing strategy with my lawyer, renewed courage and conviction propelled me upwards. I gathered my paperwork, adjusted my dress, and strode purposely from the empty house without a backward glance. I arrived unannounced at Dalton's sleek downtown office. His receptionist gawked as I flew past her desk and barged straight through the imposing double doors. "Jolene, what are you?" Dalton sputtered, rising from behind his glass and steel executive desk. Before he could react further, I slapped down the stack of financial documents in front of him. "Game over, Dalton. I know everything," I announced. His confident expression wavered slightly. I pressed my momentary advantage. "I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow. Given your situation, I expect you to be reasonable in the settlement." Dalton opened his mouth to protest, but I silenced him with one final blow. "And if you fight me, I won't hesitate to share every sordid detail with the board, your investors, our entire social circle." My voice rang with conviction. "My lawyer seems confident that exposing your dirty laundry would rather undermine your attempts to save face and salvage your precious reputation, bankruptcy notwithstanding." Dalton Pidd sinking slowly back into his seat in tacit acceptance. His eyes narrowed, but his voice held a note of defeat when he finally replied, "You don't have to threaten me, Jolene. Despite what you may think, I have no intention of leaving you destitute." I nodded curtly, maintaining my defensive facade despite the tempest of emotion swirling inside me. I turned on my heels without another word, refusing to let Dalton see me crumble yet again. Safely outside, I sucked in ragged gulps of air, willing my thundering heart to quiet and the sting of tears to abate. So this was it, the demise of the future. I had staked everything on straightening my back. I began the long walk back to grab my things from the house I could no longer call home. Yet amidst the uncertainty now before me, each step fueled a growing flicker of hope inside my heart. I was finally taking back control of my life, and God help anyone who tried to stand in my way. I took a deep, steadying breath as I prepared to sign the final divorce decree. After weeks of tense negotiations, we had finally reached an agreement. I would retain ownership of our main residence and receive a sizable portion of marital assets. Dalton would keep his summer beach house and the remaining investments. Just sign the damn thing so we can end this charade of a marriage once and for all. Dalton grumbled, shoving the paperwork toward me. I picked up my pen, hesitating even now. Parting ways with Dalton for good unleashed a swirling vortex of emotions I thought I had neatly compartmentalized. Sensing my reluctance, Dalton seized the opportunity to twist the knife one final time. Having second thoughts about throwing away your cushy future as Mrs. Dalton Harris? Not so easy to give up the private jets and beachside villas for a life of mediocrity, is it? His smug expression fueled my mounting anger, vanquishing any last shred of sadness. I met his contemptuous gaze head-on. Quite the contrary, Dalton, I replied evenly. I discovered recently that I have assets of my own. His eyes narrowed at my cryptic response. I continued, remember that lakeside property I inherited from my grandmother years ago? The one you insisted I sell right away so you could fund your newest development. Dalton shifted uncomfortably at the long-forgotten memory. After ignoring his demands to liquidate the modest land asset, I had tucked away the property deed, retaining my small connection to family history. Well, it turns out that land is now prime real estate worth nearly $2 million. I revealed casually. So you see, I'll manage just fine on my own. Dalton's face morphed from confusion to disbelief to outrage in quick succession. He sputtered indignantly, "What? You can't prove." "No matter." I cut off his rambling threats with a wave of my hand. "Don't waste your time or money, Dalton. The property is solely in my name. But by all means, take me to court if you need yet another public humiliation." I signed the divorce decree with flourish and pushed it back across the table, relishing this final victory. For a brief moment, I allowed smug satisfaction to replace the swirling emotions I had bottled up for too long. I stood calmly, gathering my belongings while Dalton stared at me wildly, the new reality settling over him. "Well, if we're quite finished here, gentlemen, I'll be on my way." I nodded graciously at our lawyers before turning my gaze back to Dalton. "I do hope you find some shred of human decency left in that dark heart of yours, for your sake at least, if not anyone else's." With those final words, I walked steadily from the room, only allowing myself to tremble with release once outside the oppressive atmosphere. I leaned against the cool brick wall, taking deep, healing breaths. The time had come to close this painful chapter for good and step fully into a future of my own making. While Dalton grappled with his bitter comeuppance, I felt only lightness and liberty. Tomorrow would mark the first sunrise of a life no longer confined by secrets, manipulation, or the suffocation of stunted dreams. Against all odds, I had salvaged my sense of self from the ruins of betrayal, and nothing could dampen my spirit now. I heaved a satisfied sigh, admiring my surroundings. The blank walls and bare floors held only possibility, a far cry from the cold opulence of the home. The past few months had flown by in a flurry of fresh starts, new ventures, and overdue reckonings. The sale of my inherited lakefront property had left me with newfound financial independence. After the divorce, Dalton descended swiftly into disgrace as details of his shady business dealings came to light. Meanwhile, I embraced solitude and reveled in personal growth. Now, on the eve before opening day of my very own bakery, I paused to reflect on the circuitous route that had delivered me here. Failures often plant the seeds of later success, I mused, and what felt like loss and devastation ultimately cleared the way for truer fulfillment. My philosophical rumination ended abruptly with Lucia's signature cheerful greeting. "It smells heavenly in here already," she remarked. My longtime friend and confidant had left Dalton's employment to join me in this new endeavor. Her steadfast support through all my tribulations had been a rare gift. We spent the afternoon preparing a test batch of goodies showcasing my decadent family recipes. Tomorrow, these polished granite countertops would display baskets brimming with flaky croissants, glossy fruit tarts, and artisan breads. As we worked, Laughing easily together, my phone buzzed loudly in my pocket. I dusted the flour from my hands before glancing at the caller ID, an international number I didn't recognize. Curiosity got the better of me. Hello, Jolene Harris speaking. I answered briskly, prepared to terminate yet another sales solicitation. But the smooth, familiar voice I heard instead jolted me completely. Jolene, it's Dalton. I'm sorry for the out-of-the-blue call, he said, sounding uncharacteristically hesitant and deflated. Curiosity rooted me in place. I just heard about your new bakery on social media. Congratulations. His voice trailed off awkwardly. Anyway, the reason I'm calling. I know my apology likely means nothing at this point, but I wanted to express my sincere regret for how everything unfolded. I stood frozen in stunned silence, trying to process Dalton's words as he continued haltingly. Leaving you and losing the publicity battle afterwards, it finally knocked some sense into me. I discovered who my true supporters were. Lucia and I exchanged stunned looks. Was Dalton Harris actually demonstrating humility? When I still didn't respond, Dalton pressed on. I ended up relocating abroad to escape the drama and scrutiny. I have an opportunity to start fresh here, but before I did, I needed to make amends, to let you know how much I respect and admire you for landing on your feet. You didn't deserve how I treated you. I cleared my throat, regathering my wits after Dalton's emotional appeal. I appreciate you saying all of that, Dalton. I can't erase the pain you caused, but healing comes from moving forward with wisdom and grace. We exchanged a few more awkward pleasantries before hanging up. As I slowly set down the phone, Lucia appeared by my side, concern crinkling her warm eyes. Are you all right, dear? She asked. Considering the question, I took full stock of my emotional state. To my pleasant surprise, instead of the usual hurt and frustration Dalton's presence evoked, I felt only forgiveness and peace. His mistakes were no longer mine to carry. Meeting Lucia's caring gaze, I gave her a genuine smile. Actually, yes, I'm more than all right. For the first time in ages, I feel completely free, I said. She squeezed my hand supportively, a look of pride and joy lighting her face. Together, we turned our focus back to preparing for tomorrow's grand opening. With clarity and purpose, I stepped wholly into the life and dreams I had deferred for too long.
I attempted to whip up a homemade pasta dish with a creamy sauce, hoping to treat everyone to a delightful meal. Please savor it while it's still warm, I urged as I served the plates. However, as the dish reached the table, an unpleasant odor wafted from it, immediately dampening my enthusiasm. Hesitant, I paused before taking a bite. Aren't you going to eat it? Don't you like my cooking? Holly's accusatory tone caught me off guard, her eyes fixed on me as if daring me to criticize. Caught in her unexpected scrutiny, I felt the pressure mounting, but rather than confront her, I discreetly switched my plate with my son Aiden's, hoping to spare him from whatever foul concoction lay before us. As Aiden eagerly dug in, my heart raced with apprehension. Yet to my horror, he soon began to foam at the mouth and collapsed, sending panic rippling through the room. As Holly feigned confusion, I saw through her facade. Anger simmered within me at her malicious intent. Determined to retaliate, I silently vowed to expose her deceit. My name is Susan, and at 62, life had settled into a quiet routine with my husband after Aiden's marriage. But when Aiden confided in me about his wife's cooking, I initially brushed it off, chastising him for his ingratitude. Yet his unusual reluctance to eat piqued my curiosity, so I extended an invitation for dinner, hoping to bridge the gap with Holly and foster a harmonious relationship. Little did I anticipate the audacity of Holly's actions. When they joined us for dinner, the evening unfolded without incident, leaving me to ponder the unsettling events that had transpired. I hope it suits your taste, Holly, I ventured as she sampled the dish I had prepared. It's delicious, she replied, her expression lighting up with satisfaction. Grateful for her approval, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride at her compliment. I'm glad, thank you, I responded with a smile. Holly continued, expressing her admiration for Aiden's fond memories of my cooking. Her words made me blush with embarrassment and pride all at once. And I'd also made a dish for you as a gift, Holly announced, placing a large container in the center of the dining table. Curiosity piqued. I inquired about the contents. Holly, what on earth did you make for us? It's a French dish called quiche. Don't you know it? She replied confidently, opening the container to reveal its contents. However, what greeted us was far from appetizing. The burnt surface and the gooey, undercooked interior emitted a foul odor that made me involuntarily grimace. You just mix the dough and bake it so it's easy to make, Holly explained, seemingly unfazed by our reactions. Despite my reservations, I timidly picked up my chopsticks to give it a try. But the undercooked dough made me hesitate, and even my husband refrained from taking a bite. Seeing our reluctance, Holly's insistence wavered. Mother-in-law, aren't you eating it? She questioned, her tone strained. I'm sorry, but I feel like it's a bit undercooked. Can we go ahead and reheat it? I suggested gently, hoping to avoid any offense. Holly's reaction was palpable as she frowned at my critique. Never mind, she muttered, slamming the container onto the table with a hint of frustration. I didn't think I'd be treated like this just for burning a dish. Do you think you can do anything just because you're good at cooking? Holly's frustration simmered as she confronted me. Holly, calm down before you complain to Mom. Don't you think you should try it yourself? I interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. It's easy to make, so I don't need to taste it, Holly retorted, her tone defensive. But why aren't you eating it either? How can you serve food to people without tasting it yourself? Just try it, I urged, realizing my unintentional rudeness. Attempting to mediate, I sought to calm their escalating argument, but Holly remained indignant, her laughter edged with bitterness. Aiden, sensing the tension, apologized and followed her out of the room, leaving me feeling overwhelmed in the silence that followed. At this rate, she'll think I'm giving her a hard time, I lamented to my husband, contemplating the leftover container before us. I'm not cocky about being a good cook, I'm just average, I confess, my concern growing about finding a peaceful resolution. We debated whether to intervene further, ultimately deciding to maintain a distance and let them manage their household affairs. Yet despite our efforts to stay out of it, Holly's visits to our house increased inexplicably. Mother-in-law, will you please make lunch and put dinner for Aiden in a container to take home? Holly's sudden request caught me off guard, her presence unaccompanied by Aiden. Surprised by her abrupt visit, I found myself faced with empty containers, tasked with catering to her demands once again. I approached Holly, sensing a shift in her behavior. Is everything all right? Aiden seems to prefer your cooking, so I thought I'd ask you to make our meals from now on, she stated matter-of-factly. That's a problem, Holly. Why don't we cook together? I suggested, hoping to foster a sense of camaraderie. But her response was swift and dismissive. No, you're just going to make that disgusted face again. You're just giving me a hard time. Her words left me speechless, the divide between us growing wider with each passing moment. Despite my attempts to explain, she seemed resolute in her belief that I was a terrible mother-in-law. Though cooking wasn't a burden, the thought of preparing meals daily for a daughter-in-law who harbored such animosity was daunting. I considered offering to teach her some simple dishes, but she adamantly refused. You're good at cooking, so just make it for us. And please take care of tomorrow's meal too, she demanded, her tone increasingly brazen. Despite my efforts to reason with her, she only became more obstinate. On days when I declined, she resorted to buying prepared food, causing tension between her and Aiden. Aiden was spoiled by you, wasn't he? He just gobbles up store-bought food, she complained, her frustration evident. He's always loved eating since he was young, I defended gently, trying to ease the tension. As the days passed, Holly's visits to her house became more frequent, relying on us for her meals and Aiden's dinner. Eventually, she insisted I make Aiden's lunch and deliver it in the morning, leaving me deeply troubled by the turn of events. I approached Aiden, expressing my concern about Holly's frequent visits. To my surprise, he began offering money for their meals to avoid her cooking altogether. If you're willing to spend that much, why not encourage Holly to learn to cook? I suggested, hoping for a compromise. But Holly refused, citing hurt feelings. As tensions mounted, another conflict erupted when Holly discovered Aiden's financial contributions toward our food expenses. Why are you paying your mother? Is this supposed to be an allowance? I didn't agree to this, Holly protested, her frustration palpable. It's because you're making my mom cook for us. What's wrong with paying for our food? Aiden retorted, trying to justify his actions. Despite our efforts to resolve the issue, Holly remained adamant, viewing our actions as a slight against her. No matter how much we tried to reason with her, Holly refused to listen, insisting that not eating her cooking constituted harassment. Feeling caught in the middle, I decided to step back from cooking for them, hoping it would bring some resolution, albeit temporary. However, Holly remained displeased, and I realized it was futile to continue intervening. Reluctantly, I urged them to resolve their differences on their own. Weeks later, on a calm afternoon, Holly visited again, but this time, Aiden was by her side. The unexpected sight left me on edge as I greeted them at the entrance, uncertain of what lay ahead. "I want you to teach me how to cook." Holly finally agreed to listen to reason. "Please, just this once," I implored, relieved that our discussion had led to a positive outcome. Together, we made our way to the kitchen, where Holly arrived with her own ingredients, displaying a newfound motivation. However, to my surprise, she insisted on working alone and promptly ushered me and Aiden out of the kitchen. Confused, we exchanged worried glances, but Holly remained firm in her decision. "I can't concentrate if I'm not alone," she explained, refusing to entertain our assistance. As we anxiously waited, Holly called us back into the living room after just a few minutes. With a sense of anticipation, she served us pasta she had made in the kitchen. Though the pasta seemed hastily prepared, I hesitated to voice my concerns. But as I began to mix it with my fork, I noticed foreign objects in the cream sauce, remnants that resembled herbs but emitted an unusual scent reminiscent of air freshener. Aiden, however, seemed undeterred as he eagerly sampled the dish. "It's delicious," he exclaimed with surprise, his enthusiasm palpable. Encouraged by his reaction, Holly beamed with pride. "Wow, it's good. Holly, you've learned to make this kind of food," he praised, his words filled with admiration. "I always cook properly. Look, even my mother-in-law. There's no way she wouldn't eat it," Holly asserted confidently. "Mom, it's fine. It's just a normal pasta," Aiden reassured, though his comment would typically provoke Holly's fury. However, she appeared indifferent and urged me to eat quickly. Despite her insistence, the stronger the strange smell became as I mixed it, the more hesitant I felt. "Why won't you eat it?" Holly questioned, suspicion creeping into her voice. "So, my mother-in-law just wanted to mess with me, right?" "That's not true. It's just that," I began, but was interrupted by Holly's ringing phone. She hastily excused herself from the table, leaving the room. Seizing the moment, I urged Aiden to secretly exchange the pasta. He complied, happily indulging in a second serving. But within moments, he recoiled and collapsed, foaming at the mouth. I couldn't contain my shock, letting out a scream. "What happened? Why did Aiden collapse?" I cried out. Hearing my distress, Holly rushed back into the room, her concern evident as she knelt by Aiden's side. As I dialed for an ambulance, Holly appeared bewildered and asked what had happened to Aiden. Once Aiden was rushed to the hospital and had his stomach pumped, my husband and I arrived, relieved to see him lying on the hospital bed. But before we could express our concern, Holly questioned Aiden about the incident, echoing her earlier confusion when he collapsed. "Hey, why did Aiden collapse? How come?" she demanded, her agitation palpable. "Ollie, please calm down," my husband interjected, attempting to diffuse the tension. But Holly's accusatory tone persisted. "It should have been you. Did you force Aiden to eat it?" "What on earth are you talking about, Holly? What did you do?" I pressed, bewildered by her accusations. Holly's response was shocking. "You insulted my cooking, so I thought I'd get back at you," she admitted, her tone laced with bitterness. "Get back at me," I exclaimed, incredulous. "It's also my mother-in-law's fault that Aiden won't eat my cooking." Aiden has always been on her side. Though neither Aiden nor I intended to hurt her feelings, Holly remained steadfast in her accusations. "That's why I thought everything would be peaceful if my mother-in-law wasn't around," she continued, unapologetic. It became evident that Holly had indeed tampered with the pasta she served me, as the white residue turned out to be detergent. Thankfully, no serious harm was done, but the situation could have been far worse. Though Aiden should have noticed the strong smell, I couldn't ignore Holly's reckless actions. "If you're saying it would be better if I wasn't around, then all you needed to do was try harder at cooking," I retorted, exasperated by her lack of remorse. "But if you were still alive, Aiden would always be on your side, wouldn't he?" Holly countered, her unapologetic and unreflective attitude leaving me at a loss for words. Disappointed, I let out a heavy sigh, my shoulders slumping in defeat. Beside me, my husband shook his head in quiet dismay, realizing the extent of Holly's misguided actions. That's enough, Holly, I said firmly, attempting to rein in her childish rebuttal. I'd like to have a talk with your parents as well. Why? She protested, her confusion evident. Because talking to you won't get us anywhere, I explained, resolved to involve her parents in the discussion. After Aiden's safe recovery and discharge from the hospital, we convened a meeting with Holly's parents. Though Holly was initially resistant, I persisted, arranging the gathering and initiating the conversation. I deeply apologize for the tremendous trouble our daughter has caused you, Holly's mother, Kate, expressed remorsefully upon our meeting. Oh no, it's something my mother needs to apologize for, Holly interjected defensively. Kate's stern glare silenced her, prompting Holly to bow her head in contrition. Throughout the discussion, Kate's strict demeanor raised questions about Holly's behavior. We'll cover the medical expenses, and if there's anything else she can do to make amends, please let us know, Holly's father offered, attempting to rectify the situation. But Holly refused to relent. Stop it. I'm not paying any money, she protested defiantly. Turning to her, I asked the question that had been weighing on my mind. Holly, can you tell me why you did such a thing? At the hospital, I confronted Holly about her accusations. It's because Aiden only ever takes your side, she insisted, continuing to blame me for mocking her cooking and for the circumstances that led me to take over cooking duties. Unable to bear her attitude any longer, I revealed a certain photograph to Kate, her mother. What is this? Kate asked, visibly shaken as she examined the dish Holly had brought to our house, claiming it was a quiche. You served such a terrible thing to someone else, Kate scolded Holly harshly, her disappointment evident. With no defense left, Holly hung her head in silence as the lecture continued, leaving us no chance to intervene. Eventually, Holly admitted to everything, revealing her belief that if she could get me hospitalized, she wouldn't have to take care of me. The absurdity of her logic left me reeling. I'm sorry, but I can't continue our married life after being subjected to something like this, Aiden declared, his frustration evident. Why not? It's not my fault. You shouldn't have taken your mother's side, Holly retorted, her defiance crumbling under the weight of Aiden's words. You be quiet. You could be turned over to the police for this, I interjected, watching as Holly paled at the mention of the authorities. Though there was some trouble regarding compensation and hospital fees, Kate promised to make Holly pay, de-escalating the situation. Though Holly initially acted like a child, she seemed to reflect on her actions after Aiden broke up with her. Later, Anne discovered that Holly's parents, whom she claimed not to get along with, were actually professional chefs. Seemingly rebelling against their strict culinary standards, Holly had adopted unorthodox cooking methods after getting married. Learning of her parents' anger and the so-called bridal training she was undergoing, I realized the importance of teaching my son basic household chores. Aiden, appreciating the privilege of having someone cook for him, began making simple dishes on his own, sometimes joining me to cook meals together. Surprisingly, my husband also became interested in cooking, and the three of us now enjoy cooking together with occasional role reversals where they handle the cooking while I relax.